So I'm sure anybody that has started watching this video knows what this game is. And this is the Master System version of it. I've got this game quite recently. I've had the Mega Drive version of this for years because it was bundled with my Mega Drive when I bought it. And I was just curious to see what the Master System version was like. So I've bought a copy. And now I'm going to do a video of it. I don't have an instruction manual, so there's not a huge amount to show off here, other than the game itself, I suppose. But yeah, you can see there, it is only one player. And it also came out in 1993, which I think is a few years after the Mega Drive game. Once again, like all of my Master System videos, I am going to be playing it on my Sega Mega Drive Master System converter. This is exactly the same as playing it on a real Master System, but the reason that I choose to play this on a Mega Drive Master System converter is because it's easier to capture the footage. Now that looks remarkably similar to the Mega Drive game. I get a feeling they were going for accuracy with this conversion. I mean, it's not just look-alike graphics. They look almost identical, but slightly smaller. And there's all the same moves in there, even though some of them look a little bit awkward. They even have tiny versions of the apples. Oh no, I'm taking a right beating here. So yeah, first impressions were really good, even though one of the strengths throughout the Streets of Rage series is the music. I think most people consider the Mega Drive Streets of Rage games having incredibly good music for the hardware. But this is supposed to sound like the same music as the Mega Drive version, level 1 music. Just listen to it a little bit. So yeah, the music is pretty weak throughout this, unfortunately. And I think that's partly down to the Master System itself, because the Master System's not really up to much musically. Of course, that doesn't mean to say that all of its games have bad music, but games that do have good music still suffer from having really high-pitched square waves, mostly, and no bass. Also, have you noticed that there only ever seems to be 2 enemies on screen at once? And it's always the same 2 enemies. That's a little bit disappointing, really, because the game is only 1 player. I'm sure the Master System is capable of more than 2 enemies on screen, but perhaps they were just really trying to get rid of any flicker that might happen if there's too much on screen. So the game is pretty limited. You only ever have up to 2 enemies on screen. Ah yes, so the special attack. Because there's only 2 buttons on the Master System controller, to use the special attack you have to pause the game and then press 2 on the controller. But it's in there. And that's the end of level 1. Round 1, I should say. And now on to round 2. To anybody who's played the games on the Mega Drive, does this music sound familiar to you? That music is the character selection theme. Now the character selection theme is a really short loop, and that's the music for this level. So instead of being a version of level 2's music from the Mega Drive game, it's just the character selection theme, which is an odd choice, and I must admit I find it maddening after a while. I've got to say though, the background graphics are the best thing about this game. Like I said before, everything's a little bit smaller than it is in the Mega Drive game, but it's extremely similar. In fact, the characters in Streets of Rage 1 on the Mega Drive weren't particularly big anyway. Even the choice of colours makes it look a lot like the Mega Drive game. And the Master System is really quite limited. For those that don't know, the Master System can put, I think it's 32 different colours on screen at once, which is quite a lot for an 8-bit machine. But it can only select those colours from a total selection of 64. Game Gear is a little bit different to that because it's got a really big total selection of colours, but you can still only put 32 colours on screen on the Game Gear. And actually, speaking of the Game Gear, there is a Game Gear version of this game, and I only saw it in action just before recording the narration to this video. I thought it was going to be identical to this Master System version of the game. It's a completely different version of Streets of Rage 1. I hope I'm making myself clear here. It's still a conversion of Streets of Rage 1 for the Mega Drive on the Game Gear, but it's like a different team did the Master System and the Game Gear games, and they were completely made from scratch. And I think the Game Gear one came first. And there are quite a few differences. I think the Master System version has more levels. The Master System version has Adam as a character, but he's missing from the Game Gear game. And I think on the Game Gear version the characters are even smaller. I'm not 100% sure about that now I say that, but I think the graphics are all completely different, so the characters are different in the Game Gear 1. And you can have more enemies on screen at the same time on the Game Gear version. Part of the point of the Game Gear was to make it as similar as possible to the Master System, so games were easy to convert. Or to just basically make one game. So it's a bit odd that they commissioned two versions of the game for the two 8-bit machines. Oh yeah, don't forget to use your special. You know, I found the bosses really quite easy in this. As you can see there, you can just really just walk up to them and punch them in the front. That's a little bit too easy for my liking. Ah, now look at this. This looks really similar to the Mega Drive game. Listen to this music for a little bit and tell me if you think it sounds like the Mega Drive music. So this game has some musical differences. He really punched my leg when I was mid-jump, and that killed me. I haven't really talked about the gameplay that much, have I? All the moves are in here from the Mega Drive version of Streets of Rage 1. So you've got all of the throws and things like that. The game definitely seems to be different. I think it's probably a lot of little things that kind of stack up to make it different. But I think enemies die a lot quicker in this one. But also there's
quite a limit of different enemy types as well. So once you've played through level 1, you've pretty much seen everything you're going to see in the game. Although I do have to say there is a difference between playing it now and just sort of doing a comparison to the more famous Mega Drive game, and owning this if you were a Master System owner back in the 90s and this was the only version of the game that you had. It's perfectly acceptable for what it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start on the elevator stage because I think that's the most fun level in the game, in the Mega Drive game. Because you can throw the enemies off the elevator. And yes, you can see that it is possible to do that on this one as well. They're jumping off willingly now. What a bunch of idiots. So yeah, this level's pretty cool. Not to get too technical, because I know that can be a bit boring for people, so sorry if I sound a bit nerdy. The Master System only has one scrolling layer, so that elevator, the green elevator, and the background is part of the same screen. So the way that they're sort of doing that parallax scrolling must be quite tricky to pull off, but the game actually completely freezes when it's moving. But again, they've made it look really close to the Mega Drive game. Graphically, I'm quite impressed by this, but it's a shame that it falls short in almost every other way. I was trying to think of a way to describe it when I was playing it originally, before I started doing the video, and it sort of seems like a bootleg rip-off version of the Mega Drive game. But I think that is where I'll end the video. Even though the game is not that great really, I still enjoyed it. So until next time, goodbye.